Comic Army. My name is Chris the Comic Vet. Hope this video finds you safe and well. Recently, at the Minicon on Main Street, I had the opportunity to sit down with the owner of Retro Rocket Comics, Chris. Chris was very candid during this interview. He spoke about the past, the present, and his hopes for the future of this pretty famous LCS. This is the conversation that we had. Make sure that you hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave a comment. Let me know. Is visiting Retro Rocket Comics on your bucket list? Thank you so much. Here we go.
Right now, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while.
All right.
And that is to interview Chris, the owner of Retro Rocket Comics.
Okay.
Let's get this set up a little bit better. For the people that are hanging out in the chat, just let me know if you can't hear Chris. Okay.
Hi guys. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
All right. So, wait, did you pick this up?
I did. I bought this from Adrian because it's
Wow.
awesome. I don't know how well you can see that.
Yeah.
So good.
We did spotlight that a little bit. That's my favorite member of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, mine
Like,
too.
hands down. Like, it's especially in the late 80s when he walked away from the Fantastic Four. Such good storytelling when She-Hulk came to become a member of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we start?
I don't know.
How about we start with how the whole brainchild of opening up a comic shop started? Not necessarily the name, but where you went.
Wow.
Like, how did that start? Because for those that don't know, Chris has been in this for better part of 20 years now.
22.
22 years.
Yeah.
How did it all begin?
Okay. Weird story. I'd always kind of thought about having a comic shop, but it was never anything like it was a pipe dream, if I'm being honest. I lived a town over, and I was moved from my restaurant position there. I was a restaurant manager.
Okay.
I was moved to another management position up this way, and when I moved to Cambridge, the first kind of thing that I thought of as a comic geek was, where am I going to get my comics? And there was no comic shop here in town. And so that kind of was like, oh, wow, I could really take advantage of that fact if I had the opportunity.
So what was open then? Was Looking for Heroes open over in Kitchener?
Looking for Heroes in Kitchener.
And I don't know if the Dragon...
Carry On Comics in Waterloo.
Yes.
And the Dragon had just opened.
Okay, and that's over in Guelph. So
And
what we
now
just said, everyone, what we just said was 3 neighboring cities to Cambridge, Kitchener and Waterloo, and further east of here is Guelph. Kitchener-Waterloo is significantly closer to Cambridge, but Guelph is not. Like, Guelph is probably a good 20, 25 minutes away. Yeah.
So yeah, I just it was still just kind of sitting in the back of my mind. And I used to have chats.
Yeah.
It's true. But you still suck.
Yeah.
Call back.
What did he do?
Yeah. What did I do? So where was I saying? Yeah. So I had a friend in Brantford, where I was coming from, who had a small vintage toy shop at the time.
Yeah.
Now this was pre or early days of eBay and stuff. So he was a draw in town, but for whatever reason, it was just kind of worked out that he was closing down his shop, and he knew I wanted to have a shop.
Yep.
That was kind of a dream of mine. So he approached me and basically said, hey, if you're interested in opening that shop, if you're serious, I would love to do it with you. And I'm like, oh, okay. What do you mean? And he's like, I'd love to give you stock for your walls and stuff.
Okay.
You can do it on consignment.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Like, so when do you think? And he's like, I can give you a month. Give me 1 month. And this is like, I had no business plan, nothing prepared, nothing at all prepared.
And you're coming from the restaurant field.
Coming from the restaurant field, still just a pipe dream, complete and utter pipe dream. But I was just like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I can give you a month. I can give you a month to get this going. So I had to find a place, get a business license, try to get some kind of funding, right? Like all in a month. And I did it. I don't know. To this day, I don't know how the hell I did it. I mean, thank God
it worked out a little bit.
I did not have a girlfriend. I did not have anything else kind of to, if this went up in a ball of flame, it was only going to take me up with it, right? It wasn't really going to hurt anybody else. So I just said, what the hell, I'll do it.
Yeah.
How bad can it be? And, 22 years later, I'm still here.
Okay. So again,
crazy.
for those that are watching, we're live from the Minicon on Main Street, which is sponsored by the city of Cambridge. This is the official Retro Rocket Comics Comic Con, the first annual one. Chris is hoping to do this again next year. Again, we got about eight to about a dozen vendors here. People are starting to come back in. The swell, like I mentioned about 5 minutes ago, is starting to arrive. So where did you come up with, before we get into the logo, where did you come up with the name?
Retro Rocket. We were, when we first opened up, the idea was because we were specializing in those vintage toys that my friend had. That kind of got me along the retro aspect, and I love vintage sci-fi and stuff. And Retro Rocket is an actual thing, like it is something that they have on spaceships and stuff like that.
Yes.
I love things with alliteration. Peter Parker, Bruce Banner. Retro Rocket just seemed like it filled that need in me.
Stanley is smiling right now listening to this.
I love the alliteration of it. And and obviously so do people, because people always, I'm going down to retro. People say, oh, I'm going to retro all the time. And it always brings a smile to my face that I'm kind of like an institution because of that name.
Okay.
But yeah, it's worked for me, that's for sure.
Okay. So sorry, dude.
Yeah.
So that's the genesis of the title. Yeah. Now let's talk about this.
Oh.
So for those that don't know, Chris is actually an educated artist. Chris went to post-secondary for his art, and the kid does have a wee bit of skills, like I like to say. And where did you come up with this now famous logo?
Yeah, okay. I can't lay claim to. I gave an artist the concept for this.
Okay.
He came up with it. This is not my original artwork, but I did do a kind of a rough idea, lay it out for him. So I wanted something a little bit more professional than I could do on the computer.
Okay.
But actually, Retro Rocket Gal has her genesis in a video game that Kelly and I, my wife, used to play together when we first met, called City of Heroes. And I created a character called Retro Rocket Man.
Okay.
And she created Retro Rocket Gal, too, so we could play this MMO together.
Okay, so there's the foundation.
There's the foundation.
Right.
She had the orange hair.
Yep.
And she kind of had this kitschy outfit to a degree, and it just kind of morphed into this when we decided to use her as the actual logo of the store, which was probably about 10 years into the store's history. She was not here from day one.
Okay.
But at that time, I said, I really want something that looks like it would not look out of place on the nose cone of a plane or something like that, like one of those kind of pin-up good girl art things.
Yep.
So we did the whole, we'd love to see this kind of vintage space girl on a rocket ship.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is what the guy came up with, and it was absolutely amazing, like right out of the gate.
And it's again, like it's almost taking on she's almost taking on a life of her own.
Yeah.
So
people really like her.
So shout out to K-pop that's joined us. We appreciate you stopping by.
Hey, Katie.
So you may not remember, but I remember the first time that I went to Retro Rocket Comics. Now, over the years that I've been a customer, you've changed locations just in my time alone 4 times. We are now in the 4th location, which in my opinion is the nicest. It's the most eye appealing, especially with the architecture and the brick stone face that's inside the shop. The first time I ever set foot in Retro Rocket Comics, again, because I was living in Guelph at the time, I made the trek out to Cambridge, and you were close to the used sporting goods store.
Yeah, so King and Bishop.
So at King and Bishop, you're across the street from a really large grocery store.
Yeah, this is theirs.
And quick note for anyone that watches my channel on the reg. The first time, do you have a question?
Oh, Retro Rocket Comics. All one word. Comics. All one word. Sorry.
Was when the Ultimate Universe killed Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That was the very first time I set foot inside Chris's store, because I was looking for more than just one copy. And at the time, I had a bad experience with the comic shop that was in Guelph. So I said, you're not getting my money anymore. So I made the trek out here, which is not an easy trek, especially when you live in Guelph, because Guelph is a nightmare to drive in. And I ended up picking up the cover a variant cover, which is I think one was polybagged.
Yeah.
One was polybagged. I picked up the other cover where MJ was holding Peter, and the blank variant. And I remember walking in and like there it was, and I picked it up. And then for that, because you had that book close to the front door,
Yeah.
and when I scanned the rest of the store, it was so large, it was so deep, and I remember thinking, how many people must work here to keep this thing operational? Chris,
Yeah.
how many people were working there?
One.
One.
Just
Yeah, just Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in those days. Hi. Thank you. It's okay. Chris used to have a lot of card nights going on then.
Yeah.
So you had
Yeah.
Magic going on. I believe Pokemon was here and there as well.
Yeah, it was mainly Magic and HeroClix we were
Yep.
doing. A lot of HeroClix gaming.
Yep. And from there, for those, if I'm having internet problems right now, just let me know, because I'm down to just a weak connection. But we're going to keep going anyways. At that point, yes. Yeah.
Love it, eh?
Yeah. That's actually my favorite John Carpenter film.
It's so wonderfully cheesy.
It's above The Thing, and I know some people are going to hate me, above Halloween. Maybe it's just because I'm a big Roddy Piper fan.
I love the design of the mod.
Oh yeah, and when he put stuff on, it goes black. When he put the glass on, it goes black and white. I hope they never remake that movie. But you ended when I started before COVID. When I started picking up a pull list on the reg, I shouldn't say when I started visiting you before my pull list. You had then switched locations,
Yes.
and at that point you were a little bit closer to where you are now, but you are at one of the largest intersections in Cambridge, which is both famous and infamous because the Cambridge Hospital, was just a few hundred meters away, and a big shopping center as well. How long were you in that location?
8 years.
8 years. So that's a Retro Rocket that I know.
Yeah.
Because it's at that point then I developed a relationship with you, started a pull list, and Free Comic Book Day. When I think of Free Comic Book Day, I think of that spot and the outdoor setup and everything. You go into the parking lot a little bit. Carlito's saying it's fine. You're still going the quality. You guys appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Then you decided to change gears and find a new location.
Yeah.
The building was going to be going through some changes, and you were looking to find something a little bit more stable.
Yeah, a doctor's office bought the building that I was in during COVID.
Right.
And they were gracious enough to let me stay a lot longer than they needed to because of COVID and because of other situations. I had already started looking for a place before the plaza was bought. Because I kind of knew the writing was on the wall. I had heard some whispers.
Yes.
That there might be a change of ownership. So I started looking in downtown Galt, which I had wanted to be down here for a while.
Okay.
But I thought I could really bring something to the downtown core because my comic shop is, I know a lot of comic shops cater strictly to the older population of comic book readers.
Yes.
I always told myself from day one when I opened was that I would be a comic shop for everybody, and that includes younger children. I wanted it to be a comic shop unlike the ones that I frequented when I was a kid, where I was a second-class citizen. You know, I'd go in and they'd be like, "Yeah, get away from this kid." You know,
hello, Silver Snail.
And there's the 25-cent bins. Leave us alone. We're talking about adult superhero stuff over here.
Yeah.
So we're a very family-friendly business. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that families bring their kids in on the weekend. This is a treat for them to come to my shop.
Yep.
I've promoted literacy first and foremost for every Free Comic Book Day, and it just builds new readership. You know, your older readers are eventually going to age out of the hobby or you know, pass away, God forbid.
Yep.
And you're going to be left with nothing if you don't foster that readership on a continual basis, right?
Yep.
And I've got so many readers that I've introduced to books when they were small children that are coming into my shop now with their kids, which is crazy.
So for those of you that have yet to visit Retro Rocket Comics, and again, I do invite you to make the pilgrimage to Ontario. And again, it's about 75 kilometers due west of Toronto. If you ever land in Toronto, get on the 401, head west till you get to Cambridge, and then it's just a couple turns, and then you're at Retro Rocket Comics. The first thing you see when you step in and look left is the children's section. He does have the little golden books. There are books and comics set up for much younger readers. The first thing that you see when you walk in is that area. There's actually a little setup where kids can actually sit down as well and go through books. And he often has free comic books for little readers right there in that section as well. But if you keep going straight, like I've shown on the tour, that's where the bigger kids stuff, like myself, is usually found. And the new comic book stuff is strategically placed at the back of the shop.
That's from my long time ago. I used to work at a grocery store, and
Yes.
I learned the rule that they keep the milk and the eggs in the back.
Yes.
They keep the staples at the back, so you've got to walk past everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
A dead man saying, "Chris, send me the airfare. He'll be there." Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what. You take care of our airfare to the UK, and we'll take care of you coming to Canada. Have you been to the UK?
I have not.
No, neither have I. But yeah. Okay, so what's next for Retro Rocket Comics that you hope to see in the next, say, 5 years? What's the next big step that you hope, if it can happen, that it does happen for Retro?
You know, I'm really happy with where I am right now.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, if things change, because, you know, landlords can change and
Yeah.
rent can increase, you know, at the
Yeah.
drop of a hat anymore, you know, anytime these days. You know, but what I would really like to is just kind of build on what I've done down here in the last year and a half, which is to have more community events, to have more events like this, to just kind of make the comic shop that is accessible to everybody, and to kind of to bring it to everything that it could be. That it's not, you know, 10 years ago, everybody that would come in that was like a first-time customer, they'd be like, "This is like the Big Bang Theory," and they'd go, "Got it, need it, got it." And they would because that was the stereotype,
Right.
right? And thankfully, I've noticed I've been able to kind of like make people move away from it.
A sidestep away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, I'm doing stuff right. If I can change people's opinion of the comic shop to being something that they don't feel comfortable entering for the first time, then I've done my job. Right? So everybody should just think, oh, it's the comic shop. Why wouldn't I go in there?
Right.
Right? Instead of like, oh, no.
And so my biggest take on the difference from the location where I got to know you to where we are today is how accessible this is to foot traffic.
Yeah.
Where you were before, I'm not going to say you were isolated, but you weren't a part of a big strip mall. You weren't a part of an accessible walking area. You were kind of tucked away behind the Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
So if people didn't know you where you were, they may not have known there was a comic shop right there, just you know, a little bit away from that major set of lights. But where you are now, when I come in on Wednesdays, and sometimes when I pop in on the weekends to see you, the amount of foot traffic, people just walking in and coming in and browsing,
Night and day difference.
It's incredible. You want to talk about two different dimensions almost.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
It's even when you were.
Look at the street now. I mean, they're literally a tornado warning. Like
So
an hour ago.
Let's just show everyone
the minute it stops,
the difference of what outside looks like now.
The minute it stops, people start coming out again. You know, we've got more cosplayers showed up. And we've got people walking around. Like downtown Cambridge really has come alive in the last couple of years, and it doesn't take much to get people down here anymore because, you know, for a long time we had one of those types of downtowns that was very kind of, you know, the retail spaces were hit or miss, and there was a lot of empty spaces in between stores that were open.
Right.
But
not anymore.
You know, no, not anymore.
Not anymore.
And you know, I took advantage of the fact that I could be down here in a key location. I'm right in the middle of the block.
Yep.
And I knew I could work well with other retailers, and that's what I missed most when I moved up there. You know, and that's what I really needed was people to bounce ideas off of, people to work with. Because it's nice to have an event, but I'm like you said, I'm one guy. Kelly's nice enough to tolerate me and come in on the weekends to give me a hand.
Because Kelly has her own career.
Full-time job.
Yeah.
Her own career.
Yeah.
She comes in and lends a hand, but I can't do these events on my own, right? I wish I could, but I'm only one guy. So it's nice. Down here we have the business improvement area that has helped out the BIA. And they helped set this up with me.
So let's get into that.
Yeah.
So again, everyone that's watching, this is the first time that Retro Rocket Comics has done an official Comic-Con. Again, the Mini-Con on Main Street, which I've mentioned numerous times, is actually sponsored by the city of Cambridge. Downtown Cambridge has a community that's called
the BIA.
The BIA. And the area that we're in is actually, the neighborhood is called Galt. There is 3 areas that make up Cambridge. Galt is one of those 3. So again, 2 for $5, 5 for $20. Pick out anything that you like. Okay, man. Where did the idea for the Mini-Con come from?
I'd always wanted to do it. I wanted to do something that was an extension of our free comic book days. I mean, everybody kind of wants to do this kind of thing as a comic shop, to have guests and to have something extra to offer your regular customers and stuff. Right. But I really especially with all these outdoor events, we usually have an event every weekend during the summer. Mm-hmm. The street here is closed just for pedestrian traffic for the entire block. And they have music nights and they have night markets and floral markets. And I was like, we need to have a Comic-Con, like real bad. I wanted one before we even moved down here. I was like, that's the first thing I want to plan. Didn't happen last year.
Right.
But this year I was just like, come hell or high water, it's happening. We're going to have one. And we almost had high water today. So.
Yeah. And, So what was the first step you had to do to get permission to make it happen? So where did you have to go?
Oh, I just had to ask the BIA, really. I just had to make sure that they were okay with it.
So the BIA is the governing body.
Yes, for the downtown. It's separate from the city of Cambridge.
Right.
They act as, they help set up these events. They're sponsored by the city of Cambridge. They're funded by the city of Cambridge, but they're their own entity.
Yep.
And they take care of all of the events that happen in the downtown core. So I approached them and told them I wanted to do this event.
Yep.
And we just worked out a day. They gave me a couple of days that it could happen. And I said, all right, I want to do this day. And we just, from there on, they were just like, you're good to go. And I was like, really? It's that easy? Which is wonderful. I really thought there would be a lot of red tape in this type of events. And I've been met with nothing but kindness and helpfulness down here. I mean, Mr. Polyak, the gentleman that owns this building, he was nice enough to let us use this space as a fallback location in case of the rain.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Terry. Amazing guy. Really nice to let us use the space. He didn't have to do that, but he did. So it worked out really, really well. But yeah, it was really that easy. Just, it's just contacting people. And, the one thing I was able to kind of cash in on is the fact that over the 20 years in business, I've met a lot of people.
So this is the one thing I was going to spotlight is, I've been saying arguably the most famous Canadian independent comic book is Captain Canuck.
Yes.
Some people may say a different title, and God bless them for it. So you would think that this is a major coup that Chris was able to get Richard Comley, the creator of Captain Canuck, which, by the way, is going to be celebrating 50 years next year as Captain Canuck was created in 1975. But it wasn't necessarily that much of a coup, as Richard is an every new comic book day customer at Retro Rocket Comics.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I see Richard all the time. I'm glad that he was able to attend this because he's actually moving out to BC. So I'm sad to hear that.
Yes.
But he does have family out there. So he does have family here in town.
Yep.
But he also has family out west. So he's going to be moving out west to spend some time with his other grandchildren.
Yes.
Which is great. So I consider it a privilege that he's here. And then I think he's doing Fan Expo next week. And then
that's it for Ontario. Yep. And again, not to downplay that it's not a coup, because it is a coup, but Richard, I've seen him numerous times just coming in on New Comic Book Day.
I've known Richard for years.
Yes.
The location that you mentioned, Bishop and King.
Yes.
He painted He hand painted our logo sign
Oh.
above the door.
So you've had a relationship with
I
Richard
called
for
in a favor.
years.
I called in a favor, and I said, "Hey, Richard, like, I'm looking for a sign." And he's like, "Oh, I can paint you a sign." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I've done sign painting." And I'm like, "Okay." The guy that created Cat and Connect is going to paint my store sign. And sure enough, he shows up with these great big boards. They're all painted. We just nailed them up, and away we went.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Richard's great. His sons, I've known his sons for years. They come in, they're regulars. The Cumley family is quite prolific. There's a lot of them. Yeah,
Nice.
I've known his family for years, and him and his wife Evelyn are great. They're great.
Okay. So your relationship with Michael Schwartz,
Yeah,
how did that start?
he was a regular at my shop. Yeah, for a number of years here in Cambridge. Michael would come in, and again, there's these things. I knew Michael as a regular. I did not know that Michael was a screenplay writer.
Right.
I didn't know that he had done the screenplay for that R.L. Stein movie, Zombie Town. I didn't know that he had done No Malone. He showed up one day and he's like, "Oh, I'm doing this book," and I'm like, "What?" No, but I mean, it was great. I was like, "That's how did I not know this?" So it's weird. It's like when people catch me out at the grocery store, they only know me from the comic shop. They're like, "What do you do? You're not allowed out here." It's kind of like
you
that
exist other than I know
it's
you.
like, "Oh, I don't know. I only know this version of you. I don't know the other versions of you."
Very good.
So that was super cool. And I mean, I have a connection to most of the people here. Not just as like their art itself or whatever. Xander, like I mentioned over there, been coming into my shop since he was a kid.
Yep.
Bab Buster's down at the end that does all the movie horror props.
Yes.
That's another Chris.
Yeah. Oh.
Chris I've known since
Can't have enough.
Chris was my first co-op student ever.
Okay.
I call him Coop, which is I took the hyphen out. I just call him Coop. Coop stood up for me at my wedding. It was my brothers and him. He was
nice.
He was my third guy.
Yeah.
Because we've just known each other for so long. He's a great kid, and now he's doing all these like 3D horror props and stuff. He just did Niagara Falls Comic Con. I had no idea. I knew he was into it. I knew he was doing all this stuff.
His logo is probably one of the best here.
Yeah, the Blockbuster.
The Blockbuster, that's pretty good.
He's got those little mini
K-pop.
You should check out Bab Busters to see some of the stuff. I say stuff. He literally has the little containers of the monster yogurts from the movie The Stuff. He's got 3D piranhas from Piranha 3 Double D. Yeah. He's got all sorts of great stuff.
He also has keychains of little VHS cassettes.
Yes.
And when I was walking around, I held it up. And I'm like, our grandchildren are not going to know what these are. Yeah. You say we got to keep that medium alive. It's true.
Yeah, no, he's done some great stuff. Studio Comics. I've known Alfonso, who owns Studio Comics.
Yep.
Probably 15 years at this point. Alfonso came to my store. He was pretty much had moved here from Mexico, and he was selling his comic books. A lot of them were still in Spanish. And he had self-translated some of them, but I actually helped him in his early days translate his books for the Canadian market because his the English translation wasn't 100% at that time. So we reworked some stuff. We got to know each other through that, and I would carry his books, and then he went on to open up Studio Comics, and now he's got a successful indie comic book publishing house, basically.
That's over in Kitchener. Yep.
Yeah, Studio Comics Press. It's in the Frederick Street Mall. So if you're in the Southern Ontario area and you're looking for someone to print your comic books for you, they do a fantastic job. They do foil covers. They do all sorts of treatment covers. They've done a crazy amount of printing. Just not your stereotypical printing. So yeah, check them.
Shout out to Kyle that's joined us. Kyle, my man. And Dead Man. It's getting like the Monty Python Bruce sketch, just replacing Chris for Bruce.
Mm-hmm. You know what my middle name is? Bruce. No, I wish I was kidding, but I'm son of a Bruce, right? Yeah, there you go. You should know this.
Yeah. I felt like I already knew that, but here we are.
Yeah.
Okay. I did have one last question. Now I'm blanking out on it. The variant game and the exclusive game.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's trendy for comic shops to get into their own exclusive covers. And let's be honest, they are not cheap, especially if you deal with the big two. Have you from what I understand, you have yet to do it, but have you been approached about possibly having your own Retro Rocket Comics exclusive variant of not necessarily one of the big two, but an Image or
I have.
God forsake Aftershock, but something like that.
Or Boom or something.
Right.
They do regularly send out emails. Dynamite is big for this. They send out an email and say these comics are upcoming. If you would like your own exclusive cover,
Vampirella.
Vampirella or whatever. This is what you have to do.
Yes.
By X amount of issue 1, by X amount of issue 2 to 3, yada yada yada. So yes, I have been approached to buy it before. The price point has always been a little too high.
And you're dealing with American dollars too, right?
American dollars and shipping.
Yeah.
There's never been quite the fit for me. I would like something with a little less of a print run. So I'm hoping to find something where I can get maybe like a 500, 250, 500 started.
Yeah.
Something smaller and go from there. Something that's still desirable.
Right. Because you do have to move them.
You do have to move them.
Yep.
And there are other venues to do that now. I mean, I buy a lot of the exclusives that I bring into my shop. I purchased from other shops, right? So they've done their initial sale of their variants, and then they've offered them to me at a price where I can bring them across the border and still make a profit on them. Sell for a good price and still make a bit of money on them.
Right.
So I've done that. So yeah, I've been approached, but nothing is quite. There was a Walking Dead #1 a couple of years ago that they offered to shops. Image did. You could have your logo in the shattered glass window behind Rick Grimes.
Right.
But I sent them my logo with the Retro Rock account, which would have been awesome.
Right.
But I wanted it to be big. All I asked was to just make it big. It's got to be big. And they just wanted to use the words Retro Rocket Comics, and it was so small that I couldn't possibly justify the price.
So they wanted. So they wanted just your font.
Yeah, just kind of straight across Retro Rocket.
Okay.
They sent me a proof, and I was like, no, I do not approve. So yeah, we had to take a pass on it.
Now, you have been fortunate enough, though, with Todd, to have Retro Rocket Comics listed on a Spawn book, correct?
Yep.
So for those that don't know, if you can remember that Spider-Man homage where we had Spawn kind of like web slinging through the air, but it was chains. Retro Rocket Comics is actually one of the comic shops that was listed.
Yep.
And did they reach out to you for that, or was that just a surprise?
Yes, we were asked if we would want to participate.
Yes.
And of course we said yes. You had to sign up. And I got right on the front cover, which I'm very grateful for. We're a small, tiny font, but we are there. We're really very close to Spawn on the front cover, which is cool. So the eye's kind of drawn to him, and we are right there. Right. Which is great.
Now, was that free, or did you have to put it?
No, I have to pay for that.
Wow.
Which is nice.
The Todd coming through again, eh?
Yeah. So that was all right. It's those little kind of perks too that is good, that keep you going. And you see your name, you see your store's name on an official book, and you're like, wow, this really happens. And
Spawn, like let's be honest, like it's not Small Tomatoes we're talking about here. It's Spawn.
Yeah.
Which again is the most affordable comic book on New Comic Book Day, hands down. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I've had my store name on the inside of a couple comics too, which is very cool. Because Marvel, back in the early days of me being open, they would send us retailer thank yous, which they still do. We still get retailer thank yous from Boom and a couple of other places. But Marvel used to send them, and if you got they'd have a special cover that was kind of semi black and white, and then the rest of it would be in color.
Yep.
But on the inside, it would say "Thank you, Retro Rocket Comics."
Now, just one copy,
two copies.
2 copies.
Every store would get 2 copies of that with their name inside.
Nice.
And I have those ones. Those were like, wow, I kind of made it. I'm in my store has been recognized by Marvel Comics.
$1 million question: was it an ASM book?
No, it's Fantastic Four.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with Fantastic Four #1 at the time. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the volumes previously. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was a Fantastic Four one, and I think an Avengers one as well. I got.
Look at that.
Which was great.
Look at that. Yeah, the two biggest team books going. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah. Two biggest non-mutant team books. Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for this, man. I've been wanting to do it for a while.
All right. Appreciate it.